All right, what's up? Welcome to a new episode of Movie Schmovie. This is episode number 302. That is two more than the 300th episode. So we are too deep here in the next phase of Movie Schmovie. My name is Steve. I'm one of the co-hosts. I'm here as always with who's over there? Who's this beautiful faces?
I'm John. And you know, it's odd that 302 is actually more impressive than 300, but somehow it sounds like way less impressive. Like 300 felt momentous. 302 feels like an area code. That's all. That's just an area code. That's not an episode number.
Yeah, man.
It does. You're right. But it's a step, guys, and you know we got to keep taking these steps.
It is. We're on another 100 podcast journey. It's like
Delaware area code, by the way.
Good to know. Very, very close. So yeah, we're gonna go over a couple of things that we've seen over the last week. In the middle of the episode, we'll be talking about Disney's Cruella, HBO's Mare of Easttown. I think we all saw the Friends reunion on HBO MAX. Before we get into discussion on that, though, as always, at the top of the show, we try to go through some news items that have happened over the last week since we last got together, talk about maybe some trailers, since there seems to be a ton of trailers coming out now, since things are maybe getting back to some sort of normal and productions are going. Right. Johnny Five is alive. So yeah, let's jump into that. Was there anything, I don't know, we were talking a little bit in our chat before, like any big news items that you guys wanted to mention on the pod this week that came up?
Maybe one of the things I did want to discuss, not even the like big stock story about AMC, but AMC selling a portion of their stock to a company for cash so that they can fund adding new theaters, refurbishing ones that they have, adding new technology to them. And they're going all in on the face-to-face experience for theatrical releases, which is a really bold move, to be completely honest with you. They're banking on just assuming that people want to just come back, because there's two levels to it. People are obviously ready to come back into the world, but are they ready to be in a theater with a ton of people?
Right.
That has yet to be seen.
I think it's the ton of people part of that gives me pause.
Yes.
I'm getting myself ready for like what's going to be that thing that makes me feel like this is the time to go back to a theater. But for me, it would have to be with the belief that distancing will be in effect. You know, so I don't know. I guess if it's not going to be that, then I don't know. I don't know when it would be that it wouldn't feel strange.
Yeah, it's I mean, one thing that we've been talking about, you know, this whole AMC, what's kind of happening with them on the stock market, you know, outside of the stock conversation itself for a retail investor, something that AMC has managed to do in this time is kind of benefit from it in a lot of ways financially in terms of their capital gains and just the valuation of the company. So, you know, what you're describing is something that they did, you know, to take advantage of where the stock price was now and to raise a lot of capital to do something for the brand, you know, for the theaters, for refurbishment, like you said. I mean, a big news item that they've kind of tagged along with this is just that, like, you know, they're kind of looking at a lot of areas where like ArcLight and Pacific theaters were that have since closed or have shuttered the doors, to see about possibly taking over places and you maybe expanding or, you know, creating a different kind of AMC theater. You know, back in the day, they used to have, you know, when it was General Cinema / AMC, even the changeover, they used to have like the premium areas of the theaters, which now have kind of merged. So I'd be curious to see what they do. But like the whole idea of like the fork and dine theaters that AMC has, those kinds of properties would probably lend themselves to that kind of a environment really well, because a lot of those ArcLight and, you know, the Pacifics and have like the you know, like the premium food that you can take into the theater and a bar and things like that. So it would be interesting to see if they invest in that kind of thing. But yeah, all in all, it's just like it's a pretty interesting move by them to just capitalize on the craziness that's happening with their stock right now. So and to your point, John, it is interesting because I've been reading a lot of like exit reviews that some companies have been doing. Now, you know, with A Quiet Place out last week and Cruella out last week, while it was also on Disney Plus Premium, you know, it seems that AMC is doing a really good job with, you know, the measures that they have in place for the whole COVID, you know, even though a lot of the theaters have announced in the last week that, you know, masks will no longer be required if you're vaccinated, the same question comes up as like, well, how do you know who's vaccinated? Which is a part of my whole criticism of doing this a little too soon. But it seems like a lot of people that have done exit studies and surveys that, like, you know, they are doing a lot at AMC, it seems, to try to accommodate concerns like ones that all three of us would have, going back to a theater, which we all are eager to do, just not sure when. But yeah, it seems like they're doing a lot of things right, and they are the brand here in the States, and even worldwide. So it seems like the motivation is to really do anything they possibly can to save theaters, to save the brand, to kind of encourage people to come back. So, and this is just another step in that direction, just to raise money to make sure they can do those things. So it's an interesting move for sure.
Yeah, man.
Any other news?
I feel like there was, I was looking through my notes that I took it over the past couple of days, but I don't see anything that's coming up. I feel like there was like an interesting, it just came down today. It's a quick casting thing that popped up that Jonathan Majors was going to be cast in Creed 3. Did you see that?
No.
Yeah, so he's in talks to star in Creed 3 opposite Michael B. Jordan, which is, he's also directing the movie, so that would be interesting. But I don't know if there was any details on if he's going to be like the you know, a villain, or, you know, the guy he fights or whatever. But
Well, I would love that.
I love the idea of putting Jonathan Majors in another big movie, and that a lot of people will probably see, because Creed has become its own brand. So I'm all about that. Yeah, I don't know. I couldn't remember anything big that came up, but I did like that casting, which just dropped earlier today when we were recording this podcast. So if there's no other news items, I mean, let's just talk about a couple trailers real quick that came out since we recorded last. What's anything that you guys want to mention?
M. Night Shyamalan's movie Old. I think he's in this cool place where he could tell these smaller stories that just feel intense and well made and shot well and good scripts. I mean, I'm not trying to, you know, I feel like he's gotten a bad rap, and, you know, this last three movies have been really undeniable in my eyes. So which really gives you some perspective on his other stuff. Like, I'm looking at his films that I saw before a little differently than I did, just because maybe I misunderstood some of it, you know?
I didn't love Glass, but I think I've enjoyed the sort of smaller genre movies that he's been making that you're talking about. And this almost feels like it's like that, but in a different direction. It's like, okay, he's been doing these lean and mean, low budget things. This feels like, okay, he's putting a little bit of scope back into it with the kind of production value, even if it's just the location aspect of this movie is different from some of the others. But it still feels like a lean, mean kind of horror premise. And then as the trailer goes along, and I have to believe it's an M. Night project, so there's something being kept back, you know, but maybe not. Whatever the case, the situation evolves from just the simple, if you were to come up with a log line in your head for the movie, you would say, oh, it's a place where suddenly time starts passing by quickly for these people and they're aging quickly. But there seems to be more than that going on, or at least there's you know, it's almost puts you in mind of Lost, or something like that, where it's like there's some property of this place that seems like it's got a greater mystery behind it. But even if it is just the sort of Twilight Zone on the beach aspect that you can get from the trailer, I think this, it gets you nervous, it gets you panicking just watching the trailer, and that's something. And again, we know trailers are different from movies, but also you can kind of tell sometimes if they have a concept that they're teasing you with, and this one feels like something I don't know exactly what it is. So yeah, I'm into it. And then you get into the just the guy knows where to put a camera to create tension and to create these kind of memorable compositions, and the cast looks good. So yeah, I got more and more excited. I've shown this trailer to, you know, everyone in my family, and I've watched it probably 5 or 6 times myself. I'm pretty jazzed about this one.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it looks great. Yeah, you definitely hope that he can kind of continue the trend that he's earned back, it seems, in terms of people's interest in his movies. And I do kind of agree about Glass, but it was kind of interesting what he was trying to do there. Maybe didn't land exactly where it could have, but yeah, Old looks really interesting. Great cast, crazy idea. listening to some people talk about the story that it's based on, it just sounds like an awesome kind of area for him to kind of sit in and do the M. Night thing and see what he comes up with. And it looks, like it looks gorgeous. Like it's just crazy that we have another M. Night movie and it looks really good. So I'm hoping it delivers there. There was, we recorded early last week, so there was a couple that came out. I was going to mention. There was the big Amazon Prime July 4th weekend release, the Tomorrow War. Did you guys see that trailer with Chris Pratt?
I haven't watched that trailer yet. No.
What do you think of that, Ronald?
I'm excited. It feels like a bigger movie that we're getting at home, and I love that. I love that feeling. Like I don't know, man. There's like this thing that obviously Netflix is trying to do, that they've been doing a couple times.
Yeah.
That HBO Max is doing monthly, where you feel like you are in for a fucking treat. You're getting something that's a premium release at home, no extra money. Feels like privilege.
Yeah. It looks a lot better than I thought it was going to look. Like it still is a weird question to me, like in terms of like Paramount has their own streaming service, so why sell this to Amazon? Like just like they did with Without Remorse and Coming to America, and it's like all these big titles, but I guess they just see more back end by just a wholesale, to another streamer, because they're it's not there.
They're looking to make
them.
some quick money over there at Paramount. They're like, man,
it's a fire sale over there.
Yeah,
it's weird. They're just like, here, take this.
Right, and they may not have the means of promoting it on Paramount Plus. I mean, it's just not there yet, it seems. And
maybe,
but how do you feel about the idea that like they have those movies they pawned off, but then they've just announced a huge movie with Mark Wahlberg. Mark Wahlberg.
He's going back to Marky Mark. You didn't hear?
Marky Mark.
That's the other big news.
Well, that was one of the other trailers I was going to mention. Yeah, like they announced this like 2-3 weeks ago that it's going to Paramount Plus. This is a movie called Infinite, directed by Antoine Fuqua, and stars Mark Wahlberg and Chiwetel Ejiofor. But yeah, this was like a big budget action movie that Paramount had another one. You've got now. We just mentioned 3 big action movies: Without Remorse, Tomorrow War,
and Coming to
and
America.
Infinite, and Coming to America.
Was it called Coming to America? Was that the name of it?
It's called Coming to Remorse.
Coming to, yeah. But yeah, it's like weird, like the logic behind that, or maybe they just think that there's something there with, or I honestly don't know, or maybe they think one movie's better than the other. I mean, there's got to be some logic, in terms of what they think they can promote, or the people that are in the movie, like who they think are going to watch it on a streamer. Mark Wahlberg does have, a pretty big Netflix, presence. So not that it's Netflix, but there may be the likelihood that people that like Mark Wahlberg will watch something at their home. Maybe that's some of the logic that Paramount is using to kind of put this on their because it's one of the first big movies that they're putting on the Paramount Plus platform, and maybe his brand and his name, he is one of the biggest stars around, and he has a draw, and his movies are pretty big, especially on Netflix, those movies that he's done like with Peter Berg. But the trailer for Infinite, I think, was not good. So that's the weird inverse, is that doesn't look good to me, and they are using that on the platform, but Tomorrow War looks good and they're selling that to Amazon. I don't know what's going on at Paramount, but yeah, like within a couple of weeks, you've got a huge Chris Pratt movie and you've got a huge Mark Wahlberg movie on Amazon and Paramount, respectively. But did you see the trailer for Infinite, either of you guys?
Yeah.
No.
What did you think of that, Ronald?
Mark Wahlberg's a hard sell for me, man.
Really?
He is, man. Like I can't figure out what it is. There's a level of stiffness to everything that he does. It just feels so unnatural. Like
he almost feels like he's in like a pocket where he just does like 2 things.
Yes.
And
you know what? You know what the crazy part about that is? On the other spectrum is a wrestler who, to me, when he first started, had no future in cinema, who has become one of the biggest stars in Dave Bautista. He has range. He has like Army of the Dead. He's like emoting all these like intense sort of feelings. And then you got Mark Wahlberg, who's been around forever, who's supposed to be a bigger star than a lot of people, who just isn't. He can't emote for shit. I don't feel anything he's feeling, man. It's so weird.
Yeah, I pretty much agree with you. It's a weird. He's got like a weird. I do like him, and I find myself watching. Like I watched his Wall Street series on HBO Max.
How was that?
I liked it. I mean, like I'm a sucker for like I don't know. I like his hustle. He's got issues that he has kind of in his past and everything that are still very problematic. Stuff. And like when you watch him, I have trouble getting past like the idea that he's changed, like he does seem like he might be an asshole. And I don't like that. But I do like, how I guess how transparent he is about like what he does in the business and like how he's doing, TV shows. He's got like a shirt brand, he's got a health store brand, he's got, workout, it just what kind of like entrepreneur he is. I like that about him. But the movies it does seem like almost because I've seen those shows I'm talking about, or even like Wahlburgers, like he's got so much going on that the movies that he does seem to be super generic to me. And like he doesn't really seem to commit a lot to these roles outside of doing the thing that he does, I guess, well in some people's eyes, which is just like this action guy. And he's got like a movie coming out later this year called Joe Bell that is supposed to be really good and is a big, like, kind of showcase for him as a actor, I guess, or as a performance. But I'm interested in seeing that. But Infinite looks pretty bad to me. And I don't know. That just when you said the wrestler, I thought you were gonna say The Rock, and I was gonna say the Jungle Cruise trailer, that new one that came out the same day as Old and everything. That movie actually looks like it's going to probably be a big hit because it looks very much like Jumanji crossed with like Pirates, which just sounds like a hit, like for Disney. So, and that's coming out day and date on Disney Plus. With I think they're doing the premiere thing with that.
What day is that?
It's the premiere. I think that's one because I think that one's premiere. Luca is regular Disney Plus, the Pixar, but Jungle Cruise. It's July. Let me see if I can find it real quick.
I have a question that a big question, but I think it may warrant another episode.
July 30th. What's the question?
Well, okay, so I find it a little strange that all the Pixar releases are not getting a theatrical release that I think they deserve.
A lot of people feel that way. Yeah, there's a lot of concern and just upset about it. Yeah,
Disney got Marvel and they started treating Pixar like, I don't know, like a side chick, like just like, hey, I mean, if you wanna come along, you can come along, but we're gonna give you away for free, and you aren't gonna get the marketing. The marketing has only been really big for, I'd say, Soul was huge, like. But it felt like that was because they wanted it to be considered for awards and stuff like that. Yeah, Luca, I've only seen ads for it through YouTube. Like I've only seen it at like on the top of things, and I haven't seen any commercials.
Right.
It's strange, man. I don't like the way they're treating Pixar right now.
You're right. I mean, I don't know. Again, we're like talking about all this logic behind the decisions that they're making. Who knows why, why that is a Disney Plus thing. I don't know if maybe they see that as more of a surefire family thing.
I think so, man.
But yeah, I don't know, because I think none of the animated films have been Disney Plus inclusive of your subscription.
That's what I'm
saying. It's all live action that have been the premium things, and maybe that's one of the qualifiers that they're doing, which doesn't make sense, but that could be something that they're doing.
Why was Raya premium and
Oh yeah,
why was Soul
Raya. Oh right,
Raya costs and
right,
Soul was free? That
right,
should have been reversed to me. I mean, just in terms of like.
So that's the, so you're right, that's the exception. So Raya,
Yeah.
that's the one. Okay, I couldn't remember if there was one that. Yeah, it's so weird.
It's a strange thing, man. Like, I'm worried that like.
But Raya is also Disney, not Pixar. You know, like
right? Yeah,
not that
yeah.
it's not that there's a huge distinction in certain ways, but we all know that Pixar has always seemed like a house within the house.
Yes. Yes.
But I don't know why I'm going back for this, just because I feel like if we never talk about Mark Wahlberg again, that's fine. But it's funny that like I like Mark Wahlberg, but I realized that the 2 or 3 things I like him for are like a very, very small fraction of his whole career, you know? And so when we talk about all this stuff, like I did enjoy Wahlburgers when I was in when I was in Boston. They had a good garden burger or a good you know, whatever meatless burger for my son. At the time, now I'm not eating beef either, but that's a tangent on a tangent. But no, it's just like I got Boogie Nights, I've got I Heart Huckabees, I've got like Wrong Guys to some extent. There's probably a couple of other things that I think
the other guys.
The Other Guys. The Wrong Guy, I think, is a movie with Dave Foley from Kids in the Hall. Also, The Departed. I mean, I think there's a few movies that I think he really shines in, and those are the ones I've seen. And I've walked around going, I really like Mark Wahlberg. But when I look at the majority of the things, especially the kind of his version of like the action vehicle that he does, is just some. You talk about generic. It's just some of the most forgettable, boring stuff. He seems to be one of those guys who's like. Interesting when a good director has an idea of how to use him, and maybe even he can relate to those people, or you know, maybe he brings something to the table there. But like Paul Thomas Anderson, David O. Russell, Martin Scorsese, these are all people who see something in you and kind of know how to fit you into a cinematic vision. I don't know that a movie built around him is usually going to be that promising. So that's all I have to say about him. That subject.
It is crazy though how successful he is, like as an actor. Like
when you say he's one of the biggest stars, it does kind of boggle my mind, because I sort of forget that he's one of those people that can open movies, at least in terms of worldwide, in terms of just name recognition.
Yeah,
exactly. You know, like he was in a Transformers movie. He has Ted franchise. He has the Daddy's Home franchise.
He had a movie where he talked to a plant.
Hey, plant.
And that plant stole the scene.
Yeah, he did. So question. I mean, I hate to. I'm gonna pit 2 people against each other. So, do you think that Ryan Reynolds can carry a movie?
No.
Wow.
Wait. Box office.
Box. Oh.
No, is that what you're asking?
Yeah. Okay. So give me both, because those are very two. Obviously.
So I think he's a star, and I think when he's in a movie, he's got the charisma, he's got the chops. Like he can carry a movie just in terms of performance, charisma, you know, just screen presence. Absolutely, I love him.
He's even got good timing in like those Mint Mobile commercials.
Absolutely,
the guy's a pro.
Yeah,
absolutely,
he is, man.
Box office, I don't think so. I don't think outside of Deadpool and outside of rom-com starring Sandra Bullock, I don't think he is bankable. Damn. I mean, like movies make money, like Hitman's Bodyguard makes money, but it's him, it's Sam Jackson. Who knows really what the draw is, but they don't make them for a lot, and they make money worldwide. So there's a sequel coming out to that in this month or whatever. But like, I don't think it's like to the level of like a Mark Wahlberg or a Rock or I don't know, or who else you would think of. But yeah, I don't think it's there yet. But I do love seeing movies with Ryan Reynolds in them.
He has this like slow boil thing that's going on with his career. Like even with Deadpool, he still isn't. He's like the people's champ, you know. Like people love Ryan Reynolds. Like most people, when you bring his name up, will be pretty ecstatic when he comes up. But there's something about it not translating. He hasn't had the vehicle yet. Besides Deadpool and a couple others that we've mentioned, he hasn't had that vehicle to be like say if he was in an MCU movie, like if they fit Deadpool into an MCU film,
right.
That would be the moment where his identity as a star would change. There's something about once you appear in a thing in that world,
right?
It's to the moon,
right?
I mean, I kind of think he does have that vehicle with Deadpool, but what you guys are saying about how like Deadpool is still this kind of special case almost of a movie that really got by a lot on what it was, you know, how it was subverting some of the things you expect from the content you would get in this type of movie. And you could already see with the second one that people weren't as wowed by just the idea of this is a hard R superhero movie. It already needed a little something more to kind of catch that zeitgeist. But I don't think he came out of that any the worse for wear in terms of just people. Again, I think people do like him as a smartass, and I think you're right, Ronald, that somehow people have a lot of just general affection for him. And like the stuff he does with Hugh Jackman, the kind of like as a persona, he's a guy who has like a kind of brand of humor that is like this kind of smug, sort of facile, but really just, I mean, there's, again, like I said, the timing and there's something that he does that is clearly like a skill. So I do think it's possible for him to have something, but in a weird way, there's an aloofness or a closed offness about him. I'm not going to say he's the same as Joel McHale, but there's a similar guy who is floating on sarcasm a lot. There's a certain, not to say that guy can't do more. It's just, it's hard for people to look at that person and say, oh, I now see how they can be something that's more than just like Chevy Chase, you know, 2.0, 3.0, whatever.
That's true. Like I don't know anything about Ryan Reynolds besides who he's married to. And I can honestly say, like, it's so weird to say this. I know that Tom Cruise would jump on a couch and talk about the love of his life. I know that about Tom Cruise. I know that he could show a little vulnerability. Even with the star that Tom Cruise is, he's opened up more than Ryan Reynolds somehow. I don't, it's crazy to me.
He's also a little, you know, he's
a little loopy,
a little loopier than Ryan Reynolds, and maybe a little more high, maybe a little needier in that way. But no, I think it'll be interesting to see. Like, could he do that again? To compare him to another comedian, like Bill Murray had that period where he started playing like hangdog characters who had all this soul. It's kind of hard to picture the Ryan Reynolds role that you would believe in that, you know?
Yeah.
So we'll see.
It seems like most of what he has coming up in the near future, though, is still a lot of the same,
like trading on that
of what we've seen. You got the Hitman's Bodyguard's, what is it? Hitman's Bodyguard's wife.
That title confused me every time I try to say it too. I tried to say it to Nikki the other day, and she thought I was making fun of her because I kept saying, "Wait, the
Hitman's wife's bodyguard."
Yeah, right.
And then Free Guy, which does look fun.
It's fun.
And then the other
one,
think
about Six Underground?
Oh man,
no. But you know what's crazy? I want the team that did that movie to do Fast, whatever the next one. That
you mean you want Michael Bay?
Yeah, that was shot like.
That's who did that.
Okay.
So what you're telling me is that you love Michael Bay.
Look, you've heard it here, folks. Heard it here first, folks.
Exclusive.
I've never seen so many bodies fly out of cars. I love that shit. I mean,
it's fun to watch. It's fun to watch, but the movie is a mess. But Ryan Reynolds, again, is so fun to watch in it.
It's fun in it.
Yeah, that's it. That's it.
Just trying to pose that question. I'm curious to see. I'm rooting for him for some reason, man. Like he seems like such an underdog.
He's awesome, man. I love Ryan Reynolds. I mean, he's been weird. In so many movies that I love, and I want to see him. I mean, he is a star, and he's one of the bigger names around. It's just the idea of like, you know, what's box office in 2021? You know, what does it mean? Who are you if you're a star? Is it just that you're popular on social media, which he definitely is?
Or is it just that you're in a franchise that is actually the thing that brings in the money?
Exactly. Yes. That's exactly what I was going to say. You got it.
Well, let's talk about some movies that we've actually seen or something that we've seen. We mentioned three things at the top there. What should we start with? Should we start with Cruella?
Sure. Let's do it.
All right. Somebody
take it away, John.
Cruella is a new film starring Emma Stone that is an origin story for a character who we know as someone who wants to kill and skin puppies to make a coat. And I think a lot of people are getting hung up on the notion, and even I myself, like as a general rule, I don't really need the stories about villains that make them into sympathetic characters. I don't really need that. Yeah. I like villains that are like, to me, a great villain is a great villain. And if you then turn him sympathetic, it's like, well, you're kind of you're short circuiting what makes them great in a way. But
right.
in the world where we have alternate versions of characters, and there's cartoons and there's television shows and there's movies, and you have characters like the Joker, that there might be 3 or 4 versions of them at one time. I believe we can open our hearts to the notion of a movie that recontextualizes Cruella de Vil. Like, I think the people that are like, oh, the true story of Cruella de Vil, kind of get on my nerves, but just as much are the people who are like up in arms about something like this. So I feel like a movie like this, there's always that reboot discussion. There's always that Disney remaking its own back catalog. There's certain discussions that you have to have about these movies. I think this movie does feel different from some of those Disney quote unquote live action reimaginings or whatever we want to call them. I sort of like Emma Stone. I guess I've always kind of liked Emma Stone. I've always sort of liked Emma Thompson. The actors that play the henchmen in this, I like them as well. Mark Strong is in it. I don't know. There's a lot of reasons to enjoy this movie. It has like a pace and a feel to it. If you've seen I, Tonya, you know that this director, what's his name? Craig Gillespie.
Yep.
Craig Gillespie. It's like, he likes needle drops. He likes sort of Scorsese-ish camera moves and sequences. But I don't know. There are parts of this movie that really move along very nicely, and then there are parts of it that to me were a real slog. I hate to be the guy who always says, "Boy, this movie felt long to me." But I do think that was something that Cruella, it wore out its welcome with me by the time it was over. But like I said, there were cool things about it, and I enjoyed certain aspects of it. Certain people seem to be having a lot of fun in it. I don't know. I guess I'm almost thoroughly on the fence about how I actually feel about this movie, but I do feel like there's a lot to say that is both positive and critical in a way. What do you guys think?
Ron, I'll let you go last because you seem like you really want to say something. I kind of agree. I think I probably liked it a little more than you. Maybe we're on the same page. I really thought Emma Stone and Emma Thompson were outstanding in the movie, and
just great,
just completely down for doing what these characters could do or could be. And I think that they just both did an amazing job. The cast is great. Joel Fry, Paul Walter Hauser, love them as her two like sidekicks, and Mark Strong is good in a smaller role. But yeah, I don't know. It is. I mean, it's simple to say, and it is kind of like beating or banging a drum or beating a dead horse. I don't know what the saying is, but like these movies
banging
are
a horse and beating a dead drum. I think
that's what it is. Yeah. This is just a problem that we have, and we've had it for a while, is that these movies are just too damn long. This movie is, what was it, 2 hours and 15 minutes or 25 minutes or something?
It's 2:17, I think.
2:17.
Way too long.
It's like, I don't know what the logic is in that. And there's so much of this movie that could have been cut down. And, at least 3 scenes come to mind that could have been, cut from this movie to save 10 minutes. And that would have probably been better just as a start. But even getting it under 2 hours is just like, they're making these movies, and the live action, if it's a family that's going to watch this, or, whatever the audience is for it across whatever spectrum, it's like, I don't know that anybody really needs to commit 2 hours and 17 minutes to a Cruella origin story.
Yeah, there's not enough there for that.
There's not.
Yeah.
You
especially if you're going to back off and make her more sympathetic. Now she's even less interesting if you want to go that route, to say that like she's kind of a nice misunderstood girl. You know what I mean? It's you're not even watching the story of this villain that you love to hate. You're watching the story of someone who has like aspirations in the fashion world, and she seems like a good kid. But it's like, what's the story outside of kind of like Devil Wears Prada?
That's exactly what it is. It's just like, you've got the guts of a good story. Like, if that's going to be the take on what this origin story is. And you've got such a great cast and 2 amazing, female actresses, like at the top of their game right now in this movie. I mean, I genuinely thought they were both great in this movie.
Yeah.
The costume design, the production design, the art direction. I mean, it's a gorgeous movie. Like they really did like a lot on this film. My biggest hit is just that it's too long, and it really does make the movie suffer in a lot of ways in terms of the narrative and some of the characterization. It just kind of sticks around way too long. So I mean, that's my biggest hit on it. But I mean, overall, I was pleasantly surprised, and I was definitely into it. And I don't know. I was pretty positive on Cruella. What about you, Ronald?
It ran really long. One of the issues I do have on a pretty regular basis about these movies, and I don't mind a origin story from time to time. What I do hate is not even trying to win sympathy through just the person being treated terribly. It's just that the cheap way to do it is you just make somebody slightly more terrible than the person became, and just showing that rather than just. I think there's something happening with movies where, especially with like kid movies, where there's like an absence of the truth. Where like when we grew up, there was like real shitty people that did shitty things in movies, right? Like there were people that just like kidnapped dogs, and they were like didn't give them back, and then the dog would be turned into something terrible, and that was it. That was the part of the movie. I know it's like terrible to show that stuff sometimes, but I think
I don't know what movie you're talking about with that description. The bad guys kidnapping the dog sounded like a lot of movies, then turned into something terrible. I was like, wait, what genre are we talking about?
But there's
I think I know what you mean.
Yeah, I mean, I can name you like a ton of movies like
bad
Disney
guys were
movies.
just nastier back in
People died.
Yeah.
And things happened, and that was the exchange between a villain and a good person, right? And I think we're getting to this point where like everybody's like, we don't want to make it seem like terrible people are in the world. So at some point there'll be a turn that will redeem them, but that doesn't exist in real time. Sometimes you meet people that are shitty till they die. They're like, I hate you. I hate you. They just die like that. People are terrible. I hate that they just do that. There's a shrouding kids thing that's going on in newer movies that just doesn't make any sense.
No, I know exactly what you mean. And it's because it's like, you watch an older, and sometimes it's like you can see those as almost positive changes. But I think that right now you are correct that we are right in the middle of a fascination with like just subverting the narrative that just taking it and adding a wrinkle to it, bringing it back, but putting a twist on it. And this seems to be a very convenient twist that a lot of people get mileage out of, is this idea of saying that like, what if villains are kind of misunderstood? But I feel like this sets up a movie. Maybe if they ever did a sequel to this, it wouldn't be 101 Dalmatians. This is a different world. The character that we have in this story would not do the things that Cruella de Vil did in 101 Dalmatians at the end of this movie. I hate to, no spoiler out there, folks, but this movie does not end with Emma Stone like deciding it's time to start skinning puppies. That's not where this movie leaves you.
There is a joke in there about it.
Yeah,
they definitely lean on it.
Yeah.
I would say where the movie gets weirdest and kind of most like unsuccessful is when it plays around with those connections, like those, like the kind of Easter egg, so to speak. I think when it's at its best is when it is playing this rivalry between the two Emmas that we were talking about. Because if we do have Emma Stone playing like a nuanced villain or a future villain who's nuanced, Emma Thompson is embracing playing the kind of hissable villain that I'm sort of championing in this diatribe, which is like she's just relishing. At no point does she break down and like show a little humanity or try to soften this character, and maybe it's a utilitarian thing, but you sense her having fun with some of those moments where she just says the worst thing that a person could say. But in that sense, if you're going to see the showdown of the two actresses, it really is and that part is worth it, I guess. I don't know if it comes across as the movie rolls along. Because I really do think by the time it gets to the end, you said it, Steve, there's just not enough substance here to support the sort of scope in a strange way of this movie. It needed some more of a hook or some more stakes or something there to feel like it warranted all the time spent, because otherwise it feels like you could get to the conceit, the premise of this movie. You could get to it a lot quicker than they do. I feel like it's about an hour in when we're finally to the sort of plot.
Yeah.
It's a hot topic Joker. That's what I was calling it. As I was watching, I was like, some kid is gonna watch this and be like, "This is my Joker. This is the." He's
already hot topic. I'm sorry to say, guys, the Joker's already pretty hot topic. Maybe this is like Caboodles or like mall kiosk, or you know what? This is just Disney store Joker. That's what it is. Remember when there used to be a Disney store? I don't know if those are still.
I miss those, man.
Where you get overpriced Disney merch.
Yeah. This T-shirt is $58.
I want to pay gift store. I want to pay like the prices I would pay at a gift shop inside Disneyland, but I want to do it at the mall. So I don't think any of us were. It sounds like you might have liked it slightly less than me, and I liked it slightly less than Steve.
Yeah. So it's just like a descending. It's It's like
it's more like descending.
There's a couple of cute dogs in it. I don't know how real those dogs were. I don't know how CG
it's
they
definitely
were.
a mix of CG and real. Yeah,
But
you
the
could
real
tell some
aspect of those
scenes.
dogs was cute.
Yeah, no, I'd recommend checking it out. I mean, whether it's in theaters or in Disney Plus Premium, I mean, eventually it'll be on Disney Plus regular. But if you like Emma Stone, for sure, you know, it's worth watching because she is great in it.
Yeah, she was great.
All right, so let's move on to let's talk a little bit about the Friends reunion on HBO Max, which dropped last Thursday, which was great because you know that was the day that Friends came on TV. That was
Didn't even occur to me that they did that, but that's interesting.
There it is. What you guys think of the Friends reunion?
I'm not a huge Friends fan, but that doesn't mean that I hated the show. I just didn't watch it a ton. My sister was more into it, but I was familiar with the cultural phenomenon and those guys getting to a point where they were making like $1 million an episode. Yeah. And, you know, I thought that it was really cool, man. I thought it was, you know, it took all the cool moments and seeing them talk to each other. Everybody doesn't quite look like they were in the same planet at the same time, but yeah, seeing them in the same room, speaking, connecting, hearing the little things like the lines on the table and things like that. Like I thought it was really special, and the celebrity pop-ups were even cooler. A lot of people hated the host. Do you think you thought he was bad?
I mean,
James Corden?
I don't dislike James Corden, but I just feel like, I mean, I was more like, oh, James Corden is hosting this, like before I actually watched it, because his real like involvement in it is like pretty minimal.
Yeah.
You know, when I saw it, it's like he doesn't really even talk that much.
No.
But I mean, I just feel like, you know, him just being the one that like does all this stuff, like all these event type things, I'm kind of like done with him, you know, like I don't dislike him, but I think there's like way more interesting people to have hosting something like this than James Corden. And I'm not somebody to suggest off the top of my head, but I just feel like maybe he was available, or maybe it's a network thing or whatever it is. But I just kind of feel like it's not like a problem. Like it's not like a factor to not watch this. Like if you liked Friends, this is like must watch stuff. You know what I mean? Like to me, like I love Friends. It's one of the best shows ever in my opinion, best sitcoms, like because it was like a sweet spot for me. Like when it was the show, it was like, you know, and we're similar ages, like, you know, in the, you know, mid to late 90s, it was like everything was Friends. Like if you're talking about sitcoms, you're either talking about The Simpsons, Friends, or Seinfeld. And like, you know, I feel like I definitely gravitated more towards Friends than any of those personally. And, you know, where that show went over its run was like kind of unprecedented in a lot of ways. And, you know, the idea of those 6 actors and actresses becoming the stars that they did become, and, you know, what they've done since then. And it's just kind of bonkers when you start talking about that, like, you know, how many times it's been watched and streamed and what countries and how big the ratings were. Like just, it's like a time capsule of like what TV used to be when it was like must see TV. And, you know, I just think it was a treat to watch that show for me. And like Aaron and I watched together, and, you know, very nostalgic. And the layout of it was a little weird, like kind of bouncing back and forth between like, you know, the table reads and like them being on the sets and then being in the like Q&A with James Corden in the audience. It felt like really heavily edited around some things that maybe weren't as interesting. I don't know, but I just feel like there's a lot of stuff I would have liked to have seen versus like what they did, like, you know, so like the runway thing they did with the costumes and like the people that they had doing that just seemed kind of random and weird. I would have liked to seen other people like there that were on the show, or, you know, like Paul Rudd, or like people that played the kids, you know, in the show. That's just wishful thinking. But I mean, all in all though, like I had a blast watching it. It was a really nice reminder of how much I do love that show. And, you know, it definitely blows my mind when I think about how much those people made on that show and how much they continue to make on that show every year. It's insane. Yeah, I don't know. What did you think, John?
I mean, you know, I'm similar to Ronald in the sense that like it's never been like a show that I rail against, but it was not my jam necessarily. And you mentioned it, Steve. It's like at that time, almost like on Thursday night, you might watch all the shows that were on Thursday night, but you were either probably a Seinfeld person or a Friends person. Right. I was a Seinfeld person, but I wouldn't be that interested in, I mean, I would be interested in seeing the cast of Seinfeld do this show. I don't think they would ever do something that has as much heart as this, though. And it got me to thinking about like the difference between those shows, those, you know, great quote unquote sitcoms. You could look at so many of them and talk about, I mean, I do think there's something to sort of discuss about them that a show like this is not going to address, like just humor that has not aged well and certain things like that. Like there's a critique you could levy at Friends, at Seinfeld, at Simpsons, at any of those great shows of that era. But the thing that they did was so unique. And it's interesting that you mentioned Simpsons and Seinfeld, because I had been thinking about Seinfeld and then you said Simpsons and I was like, yeah, that was a time where there were these exciting, funny shows, like these appointment shows, and you could watch all three. And I knew a lot of people that just loved Friends. And I, you know, like I said, I was more of a Seinfeld person, but I would watch it. And even not loving the show, I was kind of plugged into the soap opera of what the characters were going through. And I think looking back now, I realized that I always thought the cast was very strong. Like right now, like Matt LeBlanc and Lisa Kudrow might be my favorites in terms of like just as human beings. And I see what they did for their characters. I always have thought David Schwimmer's kind of underrated as a comedian, both a physical comic and a performer. He did so many self-deprecating things on that show and yet still kind of maintained the status of being kind of the quote unquote romantic lead in some ways. And obviously Jennifer Aniston, you know, becoming the kind of star that she was. I will say that if you are a Jennifer Aniston fan, you will be relieved to know that her problems with dry eyes seem to be over, because she cries several times throughout this documentary, or whatever we want to call this reunion special. But I mean, it's fluffy and it is what you like, fan servicey, and it does have silly cameos by like BTS and
Justin Bieber.
And Justin Bieber and shit like that didn't really do anything for me when, as you said, there was no Paul Rudd. There was no, I mean, you know, you do get some people that you might like to see, but there were segments that to me felt like, oh, that was kind of cute, but I didn't hate it because it was so full of heart. And seeing these actors together and seeing them rekindle little bits of that chemistry and seeing them even maybe relate to it in a way that they haven't before, because some of these people talk about, like David Schwimmer talks about not having watched the show really. Lisa Kudrow says there's whole seasons she hasn't watched. I don't know. I think I love Matt LeBlanc. I think I want to hang out with Matt LeBlanc. He seems like the dad at the barbecue type of guy. I don't know. There's just something about seeing these people interact, kind of what you guys were saying. Like these people, they had an impact on the culture. They did this thing that a lot of people were moved by and remember fondly. And regardless of whether you love them or not, there is something kind of like that was 10 years, and that was shows that had 20 to 24 episodes a year. It was like
crazy.
A real staple in people's lives. So to see them both pay homage to what it meant to them and also to sort of pay respect to what it means to people. It maybe could be a more substantive thing, but it is a reunion special. It's not a tell-all. And I think they do hint at some of the darker aspects of it. And they do get some little, like Matthew Perry, who I think has had the roughest, like, experience in his personal life. You sort of see traces of that. He kind of alludes to it without alluding to it. He kind of seems like the sad broken heart almost of this special, but they don't really get into that kind of stuff. So I don't know. I've said a lot about it. Obviously it triggered me in some ways. I got kind of emotional. It reminded, like I'm going on 48 this year. That show went off the air 17 years ago. It was on for 10 years. I remember being in my early 20s and going to people's apartments, and when you were hanging out with friends every night and making dinner, and it's like Thursday night was a big night. Sit down and watch television. It was super fun. I was getting nostalgic for my own friends and my own history, and I thought, oh wow, that must be really powerful for them to have this connection to this thing, and this is them together, and you sense it. There's some real love between these performers. I've had the same thought about who would it be if not James Corden. Could we have just had a show that was just them hanging around the set talk? I mean, it seems like there would have been some ways to make it less cheesy, but it's like, what is it trying to be? It's trying to be everything that we just said. It's trying to be a little bit fluffy and just like a big hug for people. So I feel like when you heard there was a Friends reunion special, you decided whether you were going to watch it. You knew immediately whether you were the person who this was for or not. So I feel like anyone who watches this whole thing and is hate watching it is like they're missing the point of their own life. This This will not change your mind about Friends. If you don't like Friends,
Right.
this is not for you. This is not going to change your mind about it. If you're ambivalent about Friends or on the fence, as Ronald and I may have been, I think you may still see something like this. Lets you appreciate what was special about this show that meant so much to so many people. So yeah, I found myself unusually emotional for watching essentially like a glorified electronic press kit type stuff.
And the parts with the interviews where people were talking about like it getting them out of depression and learning English from it. That if that didn't move you, man, it was just really well done. You know, a little over edited, but
like you said, Steve, it feels like they were editing around some content that may have or some lulls or some weird moments or whatever. But and if you want like factoids, I think there's a couple of reveals. I don't think there's anything too scintillating, but there's a few things that I think are news stories that people might not have heard before from the actors. So
yeah, it's on HBO Max right now. The last thing we'll mention in terms of like straight up reviews, I guess, the series on HBO, which is also available on HBO Max, the Mare of Easttown series starring Kate Winslet and Jean Smart, Evan Peters, Juliana Nicholson, had its series finale a few days ago. And I don't know, did you guys, well, I know you just caught up on it, Ron. Did you experience do you still have HBO like proper, John, or do you use HBO Max?
I do everything through Fire Stick HBO Max. So yeah.
Okay, because I was a part of like the whole outage that happened on Sunday night when Mare had its finale. Like I couldn't watch it Sunday night. Like there was HBO Max was like down, or that show was down or whatever. I don't know what was happening. We could not get into it to watch it, but eventually we saw it. It had its episode 7 series finale on Sunday. I know I mentioned the show like a few weeks back when it started, just like being super hyped on it, and we talked about it even a couple months ago, like in terms of like HBO stuff coming up. But I kind of have been trying to bang the drum for the show. I'm glad that, Ronald, I know you weren't trying to get into the show when we were talking about it initially.
Was not.
But hopefully, I don't know how you thought about it in the end, but personally, I love this show. I love Kate Winslet. I love basically every performance in the show. For me, I guess in the last year or so, to me, this is like the show for me. Like, I feel like this is like a perfect show. The whole murder mystery, true crime, or not true crime, murder mystery crime, whatever series, dead kids, like Ronald was saying, like, the whole idea of another show like this, it's definitely hard to kind of find an angle. But I think something that this show did so well was not only just in the amazing performances, it's just like the idea of what this community and what family and kind of how it weaves into the story around this murder and some other crimes that are happening throughout the season and kind of how they end up getting solved. But in the end, it really is just like the emotional toll that all of it takes on basically every character that we follow for 7 episodes. I've always loved Kate Winslet. I think she's one of the best that we have, and especially of our generation. And I haven't seen her in a ton recently. I know she had a movie last year that came out. I wasn't able to see. I think it was called like Ammonite. But this show is like right up my alley. And again, I thought she was phenomenal in it. Juliana Nicholson is just the last 20 minutes of the season finale of this show, without spoiling anything. I was like just completely a mess watching this show. Emotionally, like just a mess. Kind of how they land everything with all the characters that you kind of follow around over the last month and a half, 2 months. Just I thought was just expertly done. The script was just great. And I like the idea of like, that the people that, it's a director for a whole season of a show. I think there's a lot of consistency that the show benefits from with that. Mm-hmm. And, the way it's kind of balanced this idea of red herrings and, questioning characters' motives and who was what, when, where, all that stuff, like of a typical mystery, was a little different with this. It just felt a little different to me in general. But yeah, man, I love this show so much. And I don't know. Yeah. What did either one of you guys think of it?
Well, Ronald, you were the harder sell. You were the one who didn't want to watch a dead kid show, as opposed to Steve and I, who were like, bring on those dead
Sign
kids.
me up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But so yeah, why don't you say like how you kind of powered through it, and it's definitely kind of an emotionally draining show. How do you feel about it after watching? How many episodes? 3 today?
Yeah, I watched 3 today. So
did you like look out the window or go for a walk in the rain and just stare for a little while?
I did stare off into nothingness quite a few times.
You went to Wawa.
Yeah, working class. I love the East Coast, and I travel up and down it as frequently as humanly possible. Pennsylvania is like one of my favorite states to go to because it's like, yeah, it's a lot of working class towns, but there's a lot of countryside. There's a lot of it's an interesting place. A lot of our accents are really very similar depending on
dialects.
where you are.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that really drives me is good stories. And if I really don't like the murder of kids in stories, right? But you soon find out that, no offense to the people that died in this film, really the dynamic of the relationships in a small town and everything that brings is really what makes this thing very special. The idea that, like, sure, you hate this person across the street, but at the end of the day, if they left, you'd be devastated. You feel that sort of tug, push and pull and throughout the whole thing. And I don't know if you guys have ever lived really close to family, been within a couple miles of each other, but there's something about that dynamic that you really feel in this story that I don't see very often. And rather than just making a couple people make weird sounds like and twiddle their thumbs or something like that, they do a thing that I love, which is kind of playing on the idea that you assume that because someone is a bad person about this particular thing, that they could be capable of murder. Yeah. It's a thing that we do all the time where we hear stories about, oh man, this person punched a person in the face, so they must have murdered this person over here. They have a history of this. It's the thing that the oversimplification that we do, the thing that we do that protects us. That we kind of classify people really quickly to make ourselves, safe, essentially, or feel safe. They use this device in a way that I just haven't seen in storytelling before. I've read it in books, but I've never seen it in the form of a TV show. So executed so well. The performances are really good. Gene Smart, I'm going to come back to Gene Smart later when we talk about other stuff. Gene Smart and Ed Helms are having I call this the Ed Helmnaissance going on right now. Gene Smart is doing something, man. I don't know if you've seen Hacks. That is a near perfect show to me.
I think Genaissance rolls off the tongue a little bit.
A Genaissance and Ed Helmsaissance going on simultaneously, where these actors are doing some incredible work. And what Gene Smart does in this film, because like I love Mare. I love the side characters way more. I pay more attention to the people that are flailing their arms a little bit, a little extra, the town bully. I love the way they do this shit, man. We know an equivalent of these people in our town growing up. So it was damn near perfect to me. I thought it was incredible.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the things you guys are saying are pretty dead on, in the sense that like around. This is a seven issue. I've been talking about comic books with my son a lot lately. This is a 7-issue limited series. Now, this is a 7-episode show. So when an HBO show that's like got this prestige, these great actors, when it gets to that last episode or two, you start to go, okay, is this thing kind of going to really keep me going? Am I really interested all the way to the end? Is the reveal going to be that satisfying? And this show, I think both has a decently twisty plot, like to the extent that things do get revealed up to the last minute that do feel like maybe not huge surprises if you've been watching the story and really looking at maybe where the hints are leading you, but it's like that last puzzle piece fitting into place kind of feeling of like there's a satisfying amount of plot to deal deal with. But also, it's what you guys have said. It's that on top of that, by the time it gets to the end, you are as interested in Mare's relationship with her mom or her daughter, or, you know, maybe not quite in the kind of page turning aspect of some of these other things. But I do think that, like, the human relationships, we've seen other shows that have tried to do it. I think The Outsider tried to do some form of this with, like, the small town, or at least an insular community, people that know each other, that have a history. And as much as I enjoyed that show, and I would say I mark it pretty highly, I think in those last couple of episodes, it didn't quite do what Mare of Easttown did. It didn't quite keep it together and stick the landing in a way that felt like, oh, on top of just getting us to the end with this tone and pace and these actors and these roles that we're enjoying, but like getting us to the last minute, feeling like you're watching a movie in that things are unspooling until the last minute almost. Stories happening. So I think everything, it's like, I don't know if I quite had that sense of, while I was watching it, thinking like, man, this is perfect. But when I look back on it, I'm like, yeah, a lot of the stuff that again, that was anxious making for me was just that whole thing of going, when is this going to turn into like what the Nicole Kidman show, where it's like, by the time it got to the end, I was like, yeah, that was a lot of production value, but not a great story. The story actually feels like it. You mentioned a book, Ronald. This feels like a novel, you know. And I do think that some of those side relationships that just stories that happen in a slightly atypical way. I think Kate Winslet brings a certain amount of that acting talent that you're talking about, Steve. Like, when someone of her level shapes a show like this, they get to sort of create almost a space for acting and for character, and for, she clearly was relishing the chance to act in this kind of, against this backdrop. Some of the bit characters, I couldn't tell if they maybe got local actors to play them or something, but there did seem to be some authenticity and some new faces and just some unknown faces to me in this thing. And then some of my favorite people, like I want to give a shout out to, we mentioned Evan Peters. He's he's great. So what's the name? David Denby? What's his name? The guy who plays Frank, her husband. He was Roy on Friends. Roy on The Office, and got Friends on the brain. And he also, he's popped up in lots of things. I think it might be David. Is it Denham? No, I'm wondering.
David Denman.
Okay. But anyway, and he's getting a character that's a little different from the sort of thing he's played in the past too. And you're, again, the heart, the genuine affection you're talking about, Ronald. Yeah. There are so many actors that look great in this because they get to just be part of like a natural human feeling story. I do think you'll like the mystery at the heart of this, and I do think I do think I would be less interested in this story if it were just the human drama. Like, I do think the murder is kind of what brings me to the table. And I also think this is so self-contained. It's like, oh, this is not a season one of a show. This is a self-contained thing. But it did end with me going like, yeah, you could have another murder in this town that Mare has to take care of, couldn't you? But I was like, pretty soon it becomes like Murder, She Wrote if you're not careful. So yeah, I kind of hope that they don't, people are loving this. I kind of hope that they maybe, I don't know what they can do with the goodwill generated by this, but I kind of hope that they don't sequelize it or turn it into a series, because this does feel like kind of a special one and done thing that, I think Mare is a great character, and I think that her mom, I really love how unsentimental her relationship with her mom is almost throughout the whole show. Like, you get little glimmers, and they're satisfying. There is a little bit of a climax to that. They do talk to each other in an open way, but before the show's over. But I love how many times the show resists giving you the parent-child moment that another show would just be handing you on a platter with those two. Like, the two characters don't want to have a corny moment. They're not going to let the other one off the hook and be cheesy about anything. And I think that there's something kind of beautiful about that in particular. So yeah, Mare of Easttown. I think we're all saying it was good, right?
Yeah, man, it's worth checking out. If you have HBO Max, you can grab your Friends reunion and Mare while you're there.
Grab Mare while you're there.
I too hope I hope they don't like do anything more with it, because I do think it kind of like ends perfectly too. Like, just don't mind this for anymore. Just let it be a good thing. So
you could say that HBO Max will be Mare for you.
You could say that, but we won't.
No, we won't. We'd never say
we won't do
that.
that.
Stupid.
So yeah, the big talks on the show this week, Corella's on Disney Plus, premium and in theaters. HBO Max has both the Friends reunion special and the entire season of Mare of Easttown, which is wrapped up its season a few days ago. Again, that's only 7 episodes. I think all in general, we kind of were fairly positive on, some more than others. But if you are interested in any of those titles, those are the platforms you can find them on.
Heck yeah.
Before we wrap it up, do you guys any other shows, movies, any other content that you watched over the last week that you want to give a mention to real quick?
I don't think anybody needs to watch The Unholy. That's my.
Oh, you saw it?
Yes, but I don't think anyone really needs to watch it.
Oh, okay. Dang. That bad?
It's not that bad,
but not that good.
It's just like not good.
I mean, this is not going to be the movie that, like, if you're like waiting for Jeffrey Dean Morgan to have that movie, this is not going to be that movie for him.
Okay. Damn.
But if you're like thinking like, oh, Carrie Elwes seems to keep doing that movie. Yes, it's another one of those.
Oh, gotcha. Sheesh. Okay.
So it's worth talking about. If you guys happen to see it, there's a couple things that it does that are different from the average horror movie that we get nowadays. Mm-hmm. But I just felt like, it was nowhere near as long as Cruella, but I was having similar feelings of when do I get off this train by the time it was over. So
dang. Okay. I guess I'll share what I've been watching.
Do it.
2 HBO shows. The other 2, a comedy that came out in 2019. It's about 2 older siblings of a kid that's kind of like Justin Bieber, who kind of hits, and it's about the other 2 who are played by
Drew Tarver and
Drew Tarver and Helen York. Yeah, very funny. So. Yeah. And also has Ken Marino, who is doing something very special in this one. He is the agent of the kid, who is like the Justin Bieber type, who's played by Case Walker. Molly Shannon's in it. It just is a crazy show. Wanda Sykes. It's comedically hitting on all cylinders, and it does have this really cool commentary about what kids go through to become famous now, like the way that they want them to be, imaging, some languages you use to describe kids that's a little weird. That is a really cool commentary on, I guess, media and the way that they handle kid stars. So that's pretty good. I really enjoyed that. Hacks, which is part of the Gene-assance. Gene Smart stars as a Las Vegas comic who is kind of a burning, her star is burning out, and up and coming comic played by Hannah Einbinder, and it basically is a situation where she is very difficult and her agent is kind of done with her, and on a whim suggests that she becomes kind of a ghostwriter for this comic, Gene Smart, who's in Vegas. And it's really, honestly, man, like I'm a comic, and I worry about some of the things that Ava worries about, which is kind of this like not wanting to just be like a Vegas comic, essentially telling these like really typical jokes about you know what I'm talking about, the kind of like,
oh, those jokes, yeah, those are good.
I just flew in from Vegas and boy are my arms tired kind of comics, like, but what this really gets,
if you're doing that joke in Vegas, you're really confused.
No, man, people still tell jokes like that though.
No, I know.
That's not even like a funny thing. Like, comics are paid a lot of money and still tell jokes like that. And this is really a commentary about people who don't like that sort of thing, that really should kind of reassess that, because funny is funny is funny is funny. And you may have like this high road sort of feeling about comedy, but like at the heart of it, funny is funny. And, if it's like a compromise that you have to make in comedy that this tackles, and it's really cool. It's a cool show. Hacks. I think it's like up there.
Yeah, no, it's on my short list right now because it's I kind of, for the reason you mentioned, Gene Smart's someone who I've just sort of bought into at the moment, and that looked like a funny show.
Yeah. Another Renaissance person right now, Ed Helms, Rutherford Falls, the Peacock show. Man, I don't know what is happening with Ed Helms, but he chose to do like the next 5-6 years or five years or so. He's like, I want to make good shit that has substance, that addresses cool things. Rutherford Falls is about a guy that is a part of a family that owns a town that was essentially taken from Native Americans. And as a person who is like, has this lineage in this family, he has to be very honest with himself about what's happened to this town. Because I think in general, there's like a lack of understanding of the impact of racism that he has to kind of embark upon. It's really well written. And Ed Helms is doing something a little different in this one. So that's worth checking out. Peacock. Plan B on Hulu. It's a movie directed by Natalie Morales, who did the Little Things, who was a detective in The Little Things, and also co-stars in Mr. Mayor, which is fucking perfect if you want to watch a comedy, by the way. Another comedy I'm watching, Mr. Mayor. She was also in Happily, which we talked about. She directed Plan B, which is a film about a girl that has premarital sex and has to get a Plan B pill in South Dakota, which has like a morality clause where if you go to like a Rite Aid and you want a Plan B, if that person doesn't feel like you're right for a Plan B and they don't feel like morally you can handle the responsibility, they can refuse you Plan B. So she has to travel to a place where she can get it. So it's really about that sort of thing. And it's incredibly done. It's really smart. I don't really know any of the people in it. It's a lot of like newcoming actors and actresses. It's worth checking out. Another Peacock show. The last thing I'm going to talk about, it comes out this Friday today. This is Lady Parts. It's a show about people that just want to make good music that happens to be about Asian, I guess it's British Asians. I don't even know what the proper term for that is, but it's a really well told story about several women that want to make music that expresses their feelings about life in society and their treatment as brown people in the world. And it is fucking incredible. It's an emotional roller coaster and definitely one of my top picks for shows of the past 10 years, I'd say. It's just smart and tackles a bunch of things. It's representation matters. And Plan B, also headed by a brown person in the world. It's worth checking out. It's Plan B in late. This is Lady Parts, but This is Lady Parts is my favorite show in a really long time. It's gonna put you through some emotions, but it sticks the landing. It's worth checking out. So
those are both the last two were on Hulu.
This is Lady Parts is on Peacock. Rutherford
Peacock.
Falls is on Peacock. Plan B is on Hulu. Hacks on HBO, and the other two also on HBO. Watch it on HBO Max, those two.
Where do you have time to watch all those shows?
Man, I was trying to figure that out because I also have like some businesses and stuff like that. The answer is I don't know, man. I don't know if I really watch them. I think time is not real.
Wait, this just changes everything.
Right.
Time is not real. As soon as you learn that time is not real, you'll be able to fit everything within it. You can stop it a little bit, do things, and then come back to it.
Got it.
I think it's because I watched Doctor Strange, man. And I'm fucking with like.
I don't think I watched it right because I didn't learn how to do anything with time.
You've watched it, but have you watched it?
Have I watched it? Right.
Have you watched it?
You've watched it, but have you seen it? Have you really seen it?
Yeah. So that's what I've been watching. I've been watching a ton of stuff, but I don't know how I have the time, Steve. I get asked that pretty often.
Yeah, it's like, damn, traveling and working and watching
and
73 shows.
Yeah.
All right. Well, there's lots of recommendations on this episode. A lot of them seem to be on HBO Max. So,
Yes.
There seems to be some value in that service, it seems. Cool. Well, I mean, I don't really have anything specific to add in terms of anything else that I've really seen this week. We'll be back next week for episode 303. Find us at movieshmovie.com. If you want to listen to the podcast, lots of links there to listen to it on the podcast app platform of your choice. And if there's an option to review or feedback or star ratings, anything like that, on the one that you choose, something like Apple Podcasts, please leave a review or star rating. It would be appreciated. And if you want to follow us on our YouTube, you can find us Movie Schmovie on YouTube and subscribe and, kind of hit that little bell so you get alerts when we put out new episodes, because next week we're going to get back into the game of doing our Schmarvel series, as the Loki series is going to start airing on Disney Plus. So you'll be able to get those on YouTube only. You can also go to YouTube to watch episodes like the one you're listening to now of the regular Movie Schmovie podcast. You're like, interesting. Thank you for sharing that, Steve. I
appreciate that.
You're welcome. Otherwise, we'll check in with you guys next week. And as always, you've made our day. Thanks.
Bye.